I hate the way I look. I don't like my chest because I feel it's too small. I hate my hair because it's usually too straight. My hips are too big, my thighs are too big.
Actually, in my mind, I never thought I was good enough.
You think that you were big enough?
No, I didn't. I actually didn't. I don't think I was ever good enough. Look in the mirror and go, no, not good enough. It's not good enough.
Just lifting weights to get a little bit bigger. I want to attract girls.
They used to call me fat all the time and it would really bring me down.
Looking good is one thing, but a new study suggests that for young boys as much as girls, it can become an unhealthy obsession, leading to eating disorders, dieting, extreme exercise, and even steroids.
Body dysmorphia. 10 million people in the United States alone look in the mirror and hate what they see. So much so that they literally can't function a normal life and would rather hide from society than to let the outside world see their flaws. Even without diagnosis, 2 in 5 adults are dissatisfied with how their body looks every day. How does someone get to this point of self-hate? Well, let's start from the very beginning. Body dysmorphia is not vanity or simply being obsessed with your looks. Imagine noticing things that you dislike about your body that you feel are too obvious to ignore. And at first you think, okay, well, I can just fix it. Until you spend hours a day trying to fix what you think is wrong, obsessing over every little detail, only to never seem to just get it right. And the worst part is, no one else seems to be able to see this flaw but you. You see, in the mind of someone with this disorder, the perceived flaw in their looks can often be imagined, as in it's not actually there, or if it is, it's greatly exaggerated to the point where it's hardly noticeable to anyone else. But here's the problem. It doesn't matter. In the mind of a body dysmorphic person, that exaggerated flaw is as real as any other part of their body, meaning they literally see their own face differently than how you see their face. And unfortunately, it gets to the point where you're still too embarrassed to show that part of yourself to others, and that obsession festers until you rationalize in your head, it's better to not let anyone see me than to get embarrassed by letting them see how I look now. Friends ask you to hang out, but you have to tell them no without a reasonable explanation. You avoid taking pictures because you don't feel worthy of them and you assume you're gonna look hideous anyway. You hate the thought of going to the beach or the pool. You may even avoid mirrors altogether because the obsession is too much to bear. Unfortunately, there are a lot of examples of how this behavior can disrupt your daily life, and there are different things other than weight or how your face looks that someone can obsess over. But like most things, the root of this behavior usually stems from childhood. Everything we're told as a child, especially if it's a comment directly about us, holds more weight than we realize. And especially if it's coming from the people who influence us the most, aka your peers, friends, and parents. Human beings are social creatures by nature, and whether we want to believe it or not, we actually do care about the opinions others in our social group have on us, because in our ancient history of hunting and gathering, rejection from the group often meant death. So if you were constantly bullied and teased by your peers about some part of your body, you took that as social rejection, which in turn causes you to have a poor self-esteem and a negative self-image about the thing you were teased on. If you were teased in school for having a big head, like me, you may become self-conscious about the size of your head, and the obsession of trying to adjust your appearance can lead to body dysmorphic habits when you're older. And of course, same thing applies if you are teased for your teeth, having a big nose, being too tall. Yo, I remember a time a girl in my middle school said I looked like I had Bratz girl's lips. And I ain't gonna lie, back in the day, that used to bother me. But now, I don't think about that one bit. So anyways, the same thing goes double for parents and family members. And it doesn't even have to be an overtly negative statement. Sometimes all it takes is a condescending side comment from your aunt that leaves you self-conscious for years. Whoa, looks like you put on a couple pounds since I last saw you. You should probably slow down on the eating. Ain't this your third plate? Ain't this your third marriage? Worst part is, a lot of the time people don't understand that these side comments actually don't help, and what you think should motivate people only leads to more shame and guilt. You want to know the worst way to get someone to lose weight? bring it up publicly and make them feel embarrassed about it. The best practice usually is to have a one-on-one conversation, but making a remark publicly at the family dinner table, that doesn't guarantee behavior change, that just guarantees that they'll never talk to you again. Comparison is a deadly trap we all fall into as human beings, but especially if you already have a negative self-body image. Have you ever been in a friend group and you felt like you were the least attractive friend of the group? And let's say you weren't even body dysmorphic. You can acknowledge that you're not ugly, but you still feel your friends are more attractive than you. Maybe you were a part of the popular crowd and you believed your friends objectively had better features than you. A lot of the times, this could be because you're used to being the last choice picked amongst your friends, whether it be within the friend group or by other people outside of the group. You're probably used to being one of the last people picked when it comes to dating. If you're a guy and the conversation of who can pull the most girls comes up, your name is never mentioned. Or those conversations where people rank each other in terms of attractiveness. You know those Jubilee rank each other by look videos? Imagine that, but in a group chat. What makes it worse is when you come home and have siblings that you're constantly being compared to. I found this public story online posted by Anonymous, and she shared how as the oldest amongst 3 sisters, she was seen as the smart one and her 2 younger sisters were seen as the pretty ones, going as far as relatives complimenting how pretty her sisters were while only turning to her and saying something along the lines of, "Your sisters sure are pretty, aren't they?" Which again only leads someone deeper down the path of comparison. And speaking of comparison,
showing what they look like without this filter, but you need to see what I look like right now.
It's a new wave in plastic surgery. Young women, even men, changing their facial features to look more like Snapchat filters.
back in the last century, countless commercials and advertisements painted this idea of what the quote-unquote perfect body looks like.
Powerful legs and a broad chest. Will you love me just for my body?
And it wasn't until the popularity of social media, particularly with the emergence of Snapchat, where a relatively new phenomenon of body insecurities emerged. Selfie dysmorphia.
My brain knows how to deal with looking like this 1 minute and then this the next.
This is not what I look like right now. This filter should be illegal. Here's the real me. Oh my gosh.
I'm gonna take this off to show you what I actually look like. Trigger warning.
Social media filters used to be something purely meant for fun, but it unfortunately morphed into another point of comparison from where you are now to where you think you could be. This obsession with filters when it comes to photos and videos unfortunately causes people to fall less in love with their real faces. So much so that in 2017, 55% of plastic surgeons said that their patients' motivation for getting cosmetic surgery was so they can look better in selfies. And if that's not bad enough, commercials, movies, and other media flood us with examples of what the ideal body looks like, and we unfortunately have a poor habit of comparing ourselves to what other people we admire look like. To be clear, there is nothing wrong with seeing these commercials and movies and using them as inspiration to improve yourself and become better, or as a goal to achieve for a physique you'd like to have. Yo, when I was in my fitness journey back in 2022, my goal physique was Spider-Man PS4 underwear skin. And no, that's not a joke. The problem begins when you take it to the extreme and you start to feel that you're not attractive in society unless you achieve said body type. And for some reason, we've accepted that as the normal body type for everyone. And if you don't have the massive muscles, slim, thick waist, perfectly symmetrical face and jawline, that somehow we're less worthy or desirable. I mean, but here's the reality. You see people on social media who clearly had work done. Nothing wrong with that, by the way. People with edited photos to make themselves look better, fitness influencers who are clearly not natural and won't admit it, only to be found out later anyways. Our issue is that we miss the behind the scenes enhancements that would get someone's picture to look like that. We assume it was effortless and natural, and as we compare ourselves, we know we don't naturally look like that, so we look uglier as a result. When we see someone take a picture at the gym, we don't take into account that the photo was taken post-workout with a fresh pump, usually better lighting, and food probably hasn't entered their stomach since the day started. Or we see a celebrity or model with a shredded body, and we forget that they are literally paid to look this way for their jobs majority of the time. So not only are they more incentivized than you to achieve and maintain that body type, they have access to resources you probably don't. High-level personal trainers handpicked by the studio, literal Hollywood-grade chefs that prep every meal for you, wow, where did that come from? Point is, it's easy for us to beat ourselves up if we are unaware of the actual work it takes for someone to look like that. And unfortunately, this obsession of keeping up with what we believe the ideal body type is can lead many of us down a negative path, namely for eating disorders. Anorexia nervosa is an eating disorder that usually stems from a strong fear of gaining weight. Although a lot of people with this condition are already dangerously thin, and it usually comes in two types. The restricting type, where people severely limit their nutritional and caloric intake, and the binging/purging type, where people eat too much food in one sitting and force it back out of their system using laxatives or other methods. And of course, this type of behavior is dangerous and should be taken seriously, because if it goes on for too long, it can often be fatal. This is unfortunately just one of the many paths someone could go down if they develop body dysmorphic behavior due to false body expectations. And obviously, developing an exercise and proper eating habit is important and should be incorporated in everyone's life, but not to the extent where you're using your physique as a dictator of your self-worth. And speaking of self-worth, 2022 was the year I decided to finally take my physical health seriously. To be clear, I never considered myself to be severely overweight at any point in my life, but after the COVID lockdowns basically forced us to stay inside for the better part of a year, I started to notice that I was nowhere near close to how I wanted to look, namely how much fatter and puffier my face has gotten. I've always worked out and been somewhat consistent to the gym, pretty much since high school and college, but the one thing that never changed for me was how I ate. But it wasn't until a friend of mine challenged me to a 2-week diet challenge where I actually paid attention to calories and what I put inside my body. And somehow, during those 2 weeks, 8 pounds melted off of my body. And at that point, I wasn't shredded, but boy, was I excited. It was the first time that I saw any drastic change to my physique in such a short amount of time, and I was hooked. So much so that I kept going beyond the 2 weeks, measuring and counting every calorie that entered my body. Nutrition fact labels were my Bible, and Chris Heria was my pastor. I didn't track weight or fat loss during this period. All I know is my face fat went from this to this, and I couldn't have been happier. Spring and summer of 2022 were the first times anyone has ever seen my fitness progress. I went to the pool, took off my shirt for the first time, and boy, if only you saw the attention I got. The compliments, the praise, the looks from the girls, and the bros saying they were proud of me for what I'd done for myself. To be honest, you could be the most humble person on earth. That much attention given at once could go to anyone's head. And you'd probably think, wow, that's awesome, Tyreek. Surely this wasn't a one-time thing and you kept up your consistency and routine so you can stay with that physique, correct? Well, you know what they say about bad habits, right? Yeah, I went back to my old eating habits again. And I fell off from being consistent with my workouts. But this time it became worse mentally, because thanks to the calorie counting habit I developed when I was cutting, now I'm aware of every calorie I eat above my maintenance. And I would justify it and say, oh, I'll just work out even harder tomorrow. But then I don't. This downward spiral continued for weeks and months. Fortunately, I never went back to how I was during lockdown, but I certainly wasn't close to where I was at my peak. Imagine going from being the example everyone praised for how you looked to losing it just only a few weeks later. It was almost like admitting to everyone that I wasn't as disciplined as they thought I was, as if I was a fraud and me getting there the first time was only a fluke. I wouldn't tell anyone this, but I would literally walk around thinking I wasn't attractive enough because I wasn't at that body fat percentage anymore. Essentially, I unknowingly became someone who tied my worth and sense of attractiveness to my physique. And it it tainted the view I had of myself for a while afterwards, because I didn't want the people who once praised me to see how much I regressed. It was almost like I became a perfectionist, and it got to the point where if I knew I were meeting up with friends at the pool, or a situation where I'd need to take off my shirt, I would work out and cut aggressively a week or two before then, or simply just not show up. And that insecurity consumed me. Until I found something. One day, I happened to come across some pictures of Jason Momoa while he was on vacation, and the article that came with it. And as usual, the internet was in a frenzy because Jason didn't have the six-pack he once had while starring in the Aquaman movies. The article explained that at the time, Jason recently came out of surgery, and people were still giving him crap for quote-unquote letting himself go or having a dad bod. And then I remember saying to myself, I mean, of course his body changed. Bro just came out of surgery. Why is the internet clowning him? He's not gonna have a six-pack forever. And at that moment, it clicked in my head. Everyone's body changes. The issue I had with tying my self-worth to my look and my physique is that I tied it to something that will never stay the exact same throughout my life. Just like there are seasons in nature, there will be seasons in your life, a lot of which you cannot control. And there will be times in your life where you won't be able to prioritize or even have the desire to maintain your body to a certain appearance. I mean, Jason Momoa came out of freaking surgery, for crying out loud, and he prioritized his recovery. There are definitely more important things in life than trying to keep a six-pack up. The goal is to live as healthy of a life as you can, and of course, it's great to have goals for how you'd like to look. But for me, using how I look as my main form of value to myself, while simultaneously tying it to something as ever-changing as my body fat, will only lead me down a path of destruction, because no human body is perfect, and that's okay. And just to be very clear, my story with my body image and what's helping me so far was not intended to provide some form of solution if you are going through legitimate body dysmorphia. My hope was that if you somehow related to me, I hope I was able to shed more light on your situation. When I make videos like these, the whole goal is to bring more awareness to the topic I speak on and hopefully inspire someone to get the help that they need. Obviously, body dysmorphia or any form of mental health disorder should be taken with the seriousness it deserves. You know your body more than I do, and if you feel you're at a point where you need help, please go find it. And all I can say is thank you all for watching. Thank you guys for 17K subscribers. You guys are awesome. And to end this video off, I figured we'd do something better than a mirror, and allow me to share 2 words with you that I wish I was able to tell myself all those times I'd beat myself up over my body.